Welcome back. We're talking about myths today and navigating life through your myth. And the reason this is important is if you have ever dealt with anxiety, depression, uh, chronic frustration or aggression, anger issues, obsessive compulsive things, impulsiveness, addiction, any sort of existential crisis that leaves you with a feeling like you're lacking some kind of significance. It's usually during these seasons of our lives where we are not living out our myth, and which Joseph Campbell talked about. Anybody who's read Power of Myth, if you haven't, I highly recommend it. But he breaks it down as to, our myth is not, it's not a fairy tale. It is the truth that is in us all that we are living out. And as if you're signed or subscribed to our newsletter, you got the newsletter this week that Jen put together. Is amazing. That sort of broke down what we're going to talk about today. And, the myth is better understood if we start with symbols and why symbols are important, and then we move into archetypes, and that will encompass really what the myth is and why it's so important for all of us to follow our myth and have this activated curiosity of what myth we're playing out. Because like I said, if we're experiencing chronic seasons and experiences of crises and depression and anxiety and just feeling stuck, then it's very, very important to understand your myth. Your myth it's a path to understanding you as a person. Thomas Cooley said, "I am who I think I am." It's our storylines. It's the plot development. If we are living in a movie, it's the plot. It connects us to our self. So we're going to cover that, but we got to start with symbols. Right, Jen?
Yep, symbols are great. And this has been a collection, like the last few newsletters have kind of been a collection of values and beliefs and how that all folds into this.
Yeah. So let's start with symbols. A lot of people think of symbols almost too symbolically, and then there's those who think of symbols as like a sign, signs of this, signaling this. And so when Carl Jung talked about symbols, he talked about these are the things that point us to the completion of a certain perception. What you're thinking, there's something on the other side of that, or maybe within it that completes it. So it's fun. You look at etymology. I love etymology. The word symbol is in ancient Greek. It was symbolin, and it meant token of identity. And so back in ancient Greece, they, sons and daughters, neighbors, friends, even spouses, they would go off on long journeys. And before they would leave on a long journey, they would take a clay tablet or a coin or a ring, and they would break it in half, and each person would get the other half. And so when they return, often after years, they wouldn't be recognizable. They would look different, or maybe they aged or grew up. And so they would keep these tokens with them, and they would return, and they would fit them together. If they fit, then they were accepted as this is my neighbor, this is my friend, this is my son, and you were entitled to the hospitality and into the home and what have you. So it meant token of identity. And the word I'm not going to say it right, but sibylline, which means to symbolize, means to compare or fit together. So when we symbolize something, it could be through symbolizing psychic images or through rites and rituals and things like that. That's fitting things together. And so there's two dimensions of a symbol. There's the visible, and then there's the invisible, the physical and the spiritual. And so the visible part of the symbol, it will reveal the invisible part of it. It's activating a curiosity to complete itself. So the body, for example, reflects the spirit. And so it stimulates this curiosity or an attraction to another unseen point of view or position. And when that other is understood, it adds to the existing point of view or to the existing position. So it means to make whole, it's the totality of something. And if we think of our ID, our id, show here, this is Carl Jung's basic map of our consciousness. And the ego or the id, it has many tokens of identity, so to speak, many half tokens, right? And they're seeking their completion, their meaning, the other half, the totality of itself. These half tokens are like complexes of the psyche. And these things, they're seeking the other half in order to make the self whole. And so it's like the circle might be a sphere. The coin has two sides, or does it have three, right? Heads, tails, maybe the third side is in between. It's seeking its completion of itself. And so in our consciousness, our personal unconsciousness, this is where we have our psychic complexes. And they're like splinters of the mind that have not been fit together, made whole. The unconscious, it's our dreams, it's the symbols, it's the natural language of the psyche. It's they present metaphorical meaning, interpretation, and it's flexible. It's all individual to each person. So when symbols are images, like psychic images, visions, dreams, painting, drawing. These are symbols of your psyche. When you draw, free writing, and painting, art, poetry, these are psychic images that you are materializing of symbols. Symbols can also be acts, like actions. These are things like rituals, rites, and traditions. You can also see it in your dreams, like the behaviors and actions within dreams. Those symbolize something. And so, for example, the sfumata at the conclave at the Vatican, they just had the new pope, and they have the chimney where it blows different colored smoke. That's a symbolic act. However, those who see it, dependent upon the color of the smoke, it's a sign that they have not found a new pope yet. If it's red, if it's white smoke, it's a sign that they have identified or chosen a new pope. But the sfumata is a symbolic act of itself, open to interpretation. And so, anywho, it's
a ritual.
Huh? Yeah, and it's a ritual. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it counts as the ritual. And then you'll see the traditions and the certain rites of passage play out as the new pope is brought in and formally seated in his position. And so yeah, it's images, and the symbols of the image symbols are metaphoric, and they don't have any obvious meaning. It's based on individual terms.
Okay.
So
that's what I was going to say too, Sarah, is that a symbol for me, like if we're looking at the same symbol, it'll have a meaning for me and a different meaning for you.
right. Yeah, it's like if you have a dream, there's so many symbols in dreams, but let's say in the dream you're on a boat in the ocean and you're on water. So for me, water may symbolize consciousness or emotions. For you, water may symbolize femininity or peace, or if the waves are choppy, it may symbolize turbulence for you. And so it could all be very different for each person. Yeah, it's definitely individual terms. And again, they're not obvious meaning. It points you to seeking the meaning and identifying it yourself to bridge the conscious and the unconscious.
I have to say that's one of the reasons why we love tarot so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's just it's so full. It's so full. So there's so much symbolism in tarot, and each card has so much symbolism. There's all these pictures, but if you look close enough, it's not just the person or the character, the archetype that's in the picture. There's so many other things. You can tell that the wind is blowing, or you could tell that they're low, and there's other images that are in the background that are up high, and that symbolizes something. They're on the edge of a cliff, or maybe near water, or their back is turned to the water, or maybe they're in front of the water and their feet is in the water. All of that is those are symbols. They point you towards some kind of meaning that is up to you to interpret. Yeah. But your interpretation of it, that's what makes the totality of the symbol and bridges your unconscious to the conscious. So that's symbols. There's actions and images that make symbols, which then we move on to archetypes. Archetypes are the link between the image of the symbol, the symbolic image, and our instincts. And so archetypes are really important when we're talking about myth. That's why I go for it. This is the meat. This is the meat. So I hope you're hungry. We're going to digest some stuff here. Archetypal influence it's an activated in response to something biological or environmental triggers. It activates our instinct and in response to something. And it's important to know these are universal themes. It shapes our human experience. They are the deepest parts of our psyche. They are what motivates us subconsciously. And they drive us in different directions of motivation, inspiration, but they can also be a big source of frustration. There's a great book, I believe, what's his name? Anthony Stevens, sorry. Archetypes, A Natural History of the Self. And he talks about the frustration of archetypal intent. And this is when we suppress the archetypes that want to be expressed. They want to express themselves. So any sort of instinctual desire, instinctual drive that we suppress and push down, it can create frustration. Sort of like something many people will understand is like the maternal instinct. It will show up if a woman who's say 38 and she's been feeling that maternal drive. I want to have children. She's always wanted to have children. She went to school and then she had her career and her career took off and she couldn't find the right relationship. Now she's 38. The way you'll see that archetype begin to express itself out of frustration, she may start a garden and tend to the garden. She may get a dog, right? Something to care for, something to nurture. She may join an organization or that does philanthropy, anything where she can express that archetypal drive, that instinct, that maternal instinct to nurture and care for something, and until she can be a mother. And maybe she won't, that's also okay, but every woman has that maternal instinct, that to nurture something, to grow something. That's why in my course I call the mother archetype the mother/creator, because that's really what that archetype is about. It's creating something and growing it, and nurturing it, and protecting it. So that could be your education, it could be your career, it could be your sport, it could be your pets, it could be your home and the garden, all the things that we like to create and nurture and grow. That's the maternal archetype. So when we suppress these instinctual drives, the archetype will show up in frustration. It'll show up, as I said in the beginning, anxiety, depression, a sense of feeling this lack of significance in your life. That you may begin to fill that with other things like obsessiveness, fanaticism, addiction, those types of things. So archetypes are really, really important to understand, again, to embark on what is our myth, what is the story that we're playing. And Carl Jung talked about there's 4 divisions of archetypes. So we have many, many, many archetypes. Many. It doesn't mean they're all trying to express themselves all at once, but there's archetypes of ourself, there's archetypes of the persona, there's the archetypes of the shadow, which these are often the unconscious, and they drive subconscious behaviors, and the anima and the animus. So it's the feminine and the masculine side of our soul, our being. And the persona is the outward face. That's is what we present to the world. This is how we come off to the world. It conceals our real self. Often, when you go to the gym, you behave this way. When you go to church, you behave that way. When you're at work, you're this way. When you're at home, you're this way. That's the persona that you're shifting and presenting to the world based on where you are. The anima and the animus, these are the mirror images of our biological sex. So the feminine and the masculine. And the shadow is a unique collection of aspects and parts of ourselves that we have learned to keep suppressed or hidden, and in order to survive or be accepted or be loved and adored. So to the degree which we keep these parts buried or deny them is the degree to which they will control us in subconsciously. And the self, that's the sum of everything I just said. Basically, yeah. It's all of it.
I'd just like to point out too, Sarah, that is from your course.
Yes, this is from the Creating Change course. This is a tiny little portion of it.
Yeah, a very tiny little portion.
Yeah, so little preview there if you're interested. So archetypes, they get activated. And when we talk about a myth, every myth is as old as time has a hero's journey. That's the common theme. There is a hero's journey. So the archetype goes through the journey. Every single archetypal expression, whether it's known, unknown, seen, unseen, expressed or not, it gets activated in response to something, biological, environmental, and then there's a projection of it. We project it onto others. So we talk about anima and animus. When you meet somebody, a partner, a significant other, or you're dating, you're going to attract or otherwise project that. I'll talk in terms of me. For example, I will attract my unseen feminine self onto the partner I am choosing. They will then represent that feminine that I have not yet acknowledged in myself. And I, in turn, am going to represent, or they'll project onto me the same way. But I will complete, right, that token of identity, that masculine that they have not seen or fulfilled in themselves. And in relationship, when we fit those two shadows or projections together, the relationship serves as a healing and a growth factor for each person, unless you're both just really, really stubborn. But I highly recommend it. And in June, we'll get into relationships, so stay tuned for that. And we'll talk about this. So that externalization of the archetype is going to be projected out into the world. The third part of the archetype is, or the hero's journey of it, is it's going to face certain challenges in the development. So this is where we start to feel tension and frustration. We might be impulsive because we're just being stubborn. We're shoving it down. We're denying it. We don't want to integrate it. Maybe we only want to integrate some parts of it, but not the bad parts. and we'll experience some challenges from that. And so many crises will happen. So like midlife crisis, there's the quintessential man hits 40 years old, suddenly buys a sports car, gets a divorce, finds a younger woman. That's an expression of the warrior archetype that was never lived out. He's facing this part of the hero's journey where the prince then became the warrior, then became the magician, then became the king, or vice versa. And he's not ready, right? He's not ready to be the king, or maybe he became the king without really fulfilling that warrior archetype, the adventure and the fun and all of that stuff. And so there may be a crisis when he's entering that transition, that archetypal transition in his life to I got to do this stuff. I got to do it. It is a crisis. It's instinctual. So again, it's activated. Whenever we start to transition into something, our instincts are like, oh, I haven't fulfilled this archetype. And then we'll have the confrontation with that. And the completion and the resolution of the archetypal expression is also very natural. I posted something yesterday about Pamela Anderson. Did you see that?
Oh, yes, I did. I love
It's,
it's brilliant.
yeah, it's funny because I wasn't trying to be controversial, but I think sometimes when things are more controversial, they get more attention. And I was just noticing again, I read X, and sometimes I'll scroll a little bit to catch up on some things on Facebook or whatever. But I for the most part, don't really like social media, and I don't enjoy it or get much meaning out of it. But I kept seeing this Pamela Anderson. I guess there was like a big event recently.
The Met.
Met Gala.
Mhm.
Yeah. And everybody talks about the celebrities of the Met Gala afterwards, but I just kept seeing Pamela Anderson. And everybody's just criticized. She looks awful. Look at that haircut. She's so old. She's aging. Like, she does not look good. And like, people are obsessed with this. Pamela Anderson is just representing a woman who naturally allowed the transition of her archetypal expression. When she was first started out, she was that representation of the maiden. Everybody's America's sweetheart, the girl next door. Look at her. And then she got recruited into modeling, and then Baywatch, and she transitioned into the wild woman. Now she's this, sexual icon, and has all of this sexual capital that keeps people just glued and admiring her and talking about her. And then she became a mother. So she naturally transitioned into motherhood. And I showed this on my post. Look at all these pictures, right? And this is the natural, again, one of my other courses, I talk about the feminine archetypes. The four main archetypes of the female is the maiden, to the wise woman, to the mother or creator, to the wise woman. And you can see the pictures over her timeline. She just allowed that archetype to naturally transition. And so now she was a mother, and she was more like subdued. I wouldn't say subdued, but she transitioned into more just like let her hair down. She wasn't doing all the black makeup and crazy activities, and she kind of settled down.
Yeah. She looks
now
more comfortable. She looks comfortable.
Right. Yeah. And now she's transitioning into the wise woman. And everybody just can't cope with that. And so I didn't want to be critical or come off mean, but an example of not allowing an archetype to naturally transition, it's an outdated role, and sometimes we just want to hang on to it because it's such a big part of our identity and our personality and our connection to others and our acceptance from others, right? And an example of that would be, I don't have a picture to show you, but that would be Madonna. She hasn't allowed that outdated role to naturally transition. And you see these, Madonna's an example, but you see it in a lot of older celebrities that are not allowing this. They get all the cheek fillers and the lip stuff, and they end up looking like that character in that movie Saw. you know, with, like I
That's
can't even do it, but their cheeks are out to here and their lips are like this, and they look so scary. It is scary looking. And let me just say, if you're a plastic surgeon or an esthetician and your clients look like that, you should be fired. I think that at some point you need to tell someone like, no. There's got to be some sort of like moral liability to, like, I don't know, but anyway, that's an example. It's like the Desperate Housewives, all the they look like that character in Saw, and they're wheeling their bike after you. It's so scary, but that's an unfortunate example of not allowing an archetype, an outdated role, to naturally transition so that you can then express that archetype that is coming out. Um, so that's the hero's journey or the heroine's journey. Every archetype has that journey, but when that journey is complete, you also got to be accepting of that. It can be scary, but it presents another existential crisis. And that, this is what I hang my hat on. This is how I make my money. This is how people see me. This is how I'm loved. This is how I'm known. And when that starts to shift away, say I'm ready, I'm done, and I'm complete, there can be a crisis of like, then who am I? Here comes the myth. The myth is the totality of that archetype. The symbols, these images and these visions and these dreams and rituals and these rites of passage and the traditions and our behaviors that we express through our archetypal representation, if we fully integrate it and embrace it, that image plus instinct expression, and we play out these characters of our psychic complexes, and we express our needs and we express our desires, those then will complete their journey. And so the myth is the story of the archetype. And we don't have just one archetype going at the same time. We have many, many archetypes. And I have the archetype of the mother. I have archetype of the, the CEO or the builder, the company builder, right? I have the archetype of the teacher and the archetype of the counselor. And I wear these hats and I express these archetypes many times throughout. But as a woman, I'm always expressing varying degrees dependent upon, biological influences, environmental influences, all four of those: the maiden, the wild woman, the mother or creator, and the wise woman. And all the time, those are all playing out. Just like for the men or masculine person who is always playing out the lover and the magician and the warrior and the king and the wise man. They're always expressing them in some way. So for women, biologically, we may be triggered to express the maiden, who I say is that's around mid-cycle. If you're a menstruating woman, you get this burst of energy. You're kind of coming out of that menstrual fog, and and then that once you hit ovulation to early luteal, you're moving to the wild woman, right? You got all that estrogen, your testosterone's at its peak, and you're just like, yeah. So it's like, and then you hit premenstrual right before you start your period. You're like, you're down, and I call that's the wise woman, the woman who kind of hunkers in and prepares you for that transformation and that discomfort of all the stuff and the shedding of old truths and ideas and belief systems. And that's a biological cycle that women go through and express their archetypes throughout their cycle. Men don't have that, but that doesn't mean that different aspects of their lives they're not expressing these different archetypes. My friend Eric, he does jujitsu, and he's also a teacher. He's also a master gardener, and he's married to his husband Austin. They live in New York, so he goes from the warrior in jujitsu to the wise man teaching his students to the lover when he goes home and he's loving his home, and he loves to cook and he loves to garden. So his archetypes are always expressing as well. And so again, really, really important to understand what is expressing itself, what instincts are being suppressed and ignored or denied, because that is going to send you on a path of these subconscious drives that they're driving you. You're not in control of the ship here. You're not steering the car. It's driving you. And if these archetypes are not acknowledged, they just kind of go on their own little journey, and they will send you into confrontations of challenges and crises until you pay attention.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, it's important to maybe let the audience know that we talk about this type of stuff on office hours all the time too, where, someone's challenge comes up in their life and you and Alex are able to kind of support them and tell them, these are kind of symbols, or this is part of your myth, or this is part of like what's your archetype, your shadow. A lot of times it comes up as a shadow, right? Uh,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which we project. It's very, very easy to observe and identify the shadows in others. It's just human. It's easier to do that than to be objective of yourself. But if you start to notice that, like, I can point out when someone is not being truthful or authentic, or they're kind of like faking it and putting it on. That is when I can point that out, or internally I think in my mind, like, this person, that is again a symbol. It's revealing to me the unseen part of me. So it's pointing me towards this other point of view. My singular point of view is that person's being fake, but it's pointing me to the totality of this other point of view that makes it whole. Okay, well, how am I being dishonest with myself? In what way am I, being deceptive to myself? And anytime I notice that about someone, I check in and I got to ask that, because you can see someone else's shadow, but it is that in itself is pointing you to a totality within yourself. So you
yeah.
always ask. Yeah.
And what we mean by totality is the fact that it's something that's not healed in you. It's something that's not met in you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It was Carl Jung. It said anything that irritates you about others tells you about yourself, right? I may have butchered that quote. I'm pretty sure that was Carl Jung.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like him.
Yeah. So anything that irritates you about others, that is pointing you towards the full story, the full understanding of what's going on within you, or wanting to be expressed within you. David Rico is a really great author. He takes a lot of Jungian concepts too, sort of like I do. I like to take all the Jungian concepts and theories and simplify them a little bit. One of his books, amazing, David Rico, How to Be an Adult. He has How to Be an Adult, How to Be an Adult in Faith and Spirituality, and How to Be an Adult in Relationships, I think. But simple one, super easy read. He breaks down Jung concepts very well. Is David Rico, How to Be an Adult. It's amazing. All my kids get it when they go off to college. It's like,
But it's a
here you
very
go.
practical, it's very practical to have and to understand about yourself, right? Because it helps to break those patterns in your life that are just consistently coming up and coming up.
Yes. Yeah. And he has, like, even in the book, it's not just words, he has charts,
Mm.
So if this amplifies an emotional reaction, this character trait or this behavior in another person is agitating you, that's the trigger. And then it shows you the shadow is this. So if you're really triggered by someone who's controlling and manipulative, then the shadow is that you have not integrated that there's an unseen part of you, this need that is unmet to be, well, I said controlling, manipulative. I think those are two separate things. Controlling is that unmet need to be organized and to be proactive, right? It doesn't mean that your shadow is that you're a controlling person, and it just means what, again, the word controlling, the meaning of it, that is it symbolizes something, that trigger, that reaction that you get. Again, archetypes, it's activated in response to something. So your reactions to things point you to this archetype that is wanting to be expressed. And if someone agitates you because they're, codependent and needy, that archetype that is wanting to be acknowledged is showing you that maybe you need to be able to ask for help. Maybe you need to be able to reach out to other people. Maybe depending on others and having a community that supports you is not a bad thing. And so it's that archetype of the community, participant, teammate, team member, being part of the team. So if you have not realized that type of archetypal expression within yourself, to seek out community, to seek out some support, to ask for help, to give tasks to unburden yourself, you may see other people as needy and codependent, and it may agitate you. That agitation is the archetypal intent to show you, I need expression. You need support. And I love David Rico's books. And anytime I have clients, they're kind of like new to this, I always recommend David Rico's books. His last name is spelled Richo. So if you're watching this, I highly recommend it if you haven't read his books. But before we wrap up, the myth, this is the encompass. We talk about symbols, we talk about archetypes, are the link between symbol and instinct. They themselves are symbols. The myth is the story of the archetypal encounters. They're metaphors of archetypal expression. It's the hero's journey. It's the fantasy, the mythology. It's the psyche's statement about itself. It's the innermost, I think Joseph Campbell said this, it is your innermost being and reality. That is your myth. And if you, like I said in the beginning, if you've got anxiety, depression, you've got anger issues, aggression, obsessive compulsive disorders, addiction, any existential crises going on in your life, then you are not following your myth, or you're not aware of your myth, you're not connected to the myth. And so again, integrating your personal mythology is really, really important. It deepens you through self-discovery. It helps you realize things about yourself, which begins to bring meaning into your life. And so when we feel this lack of significance, is because we don't have meaning to anything. We do things on purpose instead of for a purpose. So we begin to understand our myth and our archetypal expressions. We understand there's a difference between doing something on purpose or for a purpose, because now we've got meaning behind it. Now, no matter the task, whether you think it's small or what, there's significance to what you're doing. There's significance to how others are being impacted by you. And so it starts to fill those holes. And as you fill those holes, it's like the symbol, the etymology of symbol. It's making the thing whole. It's the completion of it. And so that's myth. And one way to understand or get to know your myth, again, I highly recommend coming onto Bodybuilding, Bodybuilding Institute. It's linked below. We talk about this all the time, but we've got the courses on there too, where you can go through all of this on your own time. You can download the workbooks. You can do the exercises. The workbooks are more like journals. They're PDF journals. You could print them and work through it. And a good place to start is your survival archetypes. understanding these things that are presenting pressing issues in your life. There's the child, there's the victim, the prostitute, the saboteur, and I believe we have a video on survival archetypes, and we can post that too. It's a breakdown of survival archetypes. That's free. We'll post that below. And then again, creating change in the course, we go through all of the archetypes and the symbolism. And section 1, I believe, is it storyteller? Storyteller. Yes. That part 1 is creating your story, so getting to know your myth. My favorite exercise, I'll give you a snippet. I'll give you a little snippet, but if you want to go check it out, go to Bodhi Building Institute, join. You can, depending on, you can do free membership, you get the free values course, but if you want to upgrade, you get all the courses. So in creating change, we go really deep, but my favorite exercise I'm going to give you, if you want to know what your myth is, and you want to know what archetypal encounters are happening in you right now that want to be animated, they want to come alive, is to think of, I say in the course, is your childhood hero. Who is your childhood hero? What is the story? Or your favorite fairy tale, your favorite stories, or your favorite movie or shows. Mine was Alice in Wonderland. I was obsessed with Alice in Wonderland. I mean, for years, I would come home from kindergarten, first grade, second, third grade, and I put the VHS tape and watch Alice in Wonderland, have my snack. My mom thought, after a couple years, like something's wrong with me. Anyway, that was my hero. My childhood hero was Alice. But as we get older, we can still do the same thing. We can look at our childhood hero, or if you want to know what myth that you're living now is, again, look at stories. So the 4 questions a shaman asks when someone comes to a shaman for healing is, when did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? When did you stop becoming enchanted by stories? And when did you stop becoming or feeling comfortable in silence? So that 3rd one, when did you stop becoming enchanted by stories, is really important. Somewhere along the line where we're not into the stories anymore, that part of our myth died. So it's really important as adults, just find something that is enchanting to you, that is stimulating to you. What shows do you watch? What podcasts do you watch? Who's your hero? It could be an athlete. It could be an actor. It could be, a CEO, somebody. Look at your hero and see if you can identify what is the hero's journey. Go through their hero's journey. And I think it's easier to do it if it's like your favorite movie or your favorite TV show, or a favorite book that you like to read. It could even be a series. So the hero's the main actor or actress, the main character archetype. And then every single movie, show, book, everything, story the hero has a mentor. Somebody who's just kind of guiding them through, or they may show up intermittently and give them little nuggets of wisdom. And then there's the trickster, that it's kind of like the goofy, silly character that kind of, distracts or gets in the way of the hero doing what it wants to do. If you watch, what's that show, Parks and Recreation, so Leslie Knope would be like the hero on the hero's journey, and Andy, he would be like one of the tricksters. Like, he's always doing something goofy or stupid or making a mistake, and it's like tripping Leslie Knope up all the time. So there's many tricksters usually in the hero's story. And then you look at the nemesis. What is the nemesis? So if your favorite story or your favorite movie, who's the nemesis? Who's the bad guy or the bad person who's trying to get in the way of the hero completing his or her journey? And when you write all these down in these characters, what I always say is, write down the character name. What are their traits? Each of the traits of the hero, the mentor, the tricksters, and the nemesis. Write down what their traits are, and then go look up the quotes. Look up quotes. A recent show that I really loved, a series on Netflix, was called The Residents. Have you seen that?
Part of it. Mm-hmm.
It is. You have to watch it. Everybody looking or watching this right now, go watch. Series is amazing. So Cordelia Krupp, I think is her name. She's the investigator, and she comes in. There's like a murder at the White House, and I'm not going to give too much away, but like that's one of my recent hero's journeys that I'm just like, oh man, this show lit me up. I loved it, and it's funny. But she represents as the hero archetype, the archetype as the hero. She's an investigator. She loves the truth. She's seeking out the truth. She's following the clues to things. She doesn't make assumptions about an obvious clue. She doesn't call anybody a suspect. She calls them an interesting person. And she's just a quirky, it's good. Watch it. Anyway, so I recently, a couple of weeks ago or last week, did this exercise again based on the Residence show and Cordelia Krupp and the tricksters and the mentor and the nemesis. And there's not many quotes out there, so I had to rewatch some episodes and look at the quotes. And when you write down all the characters, their traits, and then some quotes, you will be blown away. All this to say, when you do this exercise, you look at the quotes and you can see each archetype expressing itself within you. Within you. And these archetypal encounters are trying to create an expression of themselves through you. And if you embrace and express them and integrate them into your life, it creates a balanced harmony. And even the nemesis, the one in the show, she was the White House social secretary, and she's little Miss Perfectionist, and she's like on this consciousness trend, and everything has to be healthy and vegan and conscious. And instead of the big gingerbread house at the White House Christmas party, we're gonna do IV drips, like, and it just totally played into the thing that I get agitated by in my real life out here. Me, whenever I see people biohacking this, and then they learn breath work, and suddenly they're a shaman teaching people, like, and so she represented that thing that agitates me. And of course, I wouldn't have thought about that at all until I did that exercise. And I was like, look, and some of her quotes, and I'm like, of course. Right. So what are the things that she is saying and representing that I'm suppressing? So that's the thing. It's like the hero, the main character in the show or the movie or the story, that's you. That is your expression. That's the journey. This is your myth. But every other character is teaching you how to complete that journey, how to live it out fully. And so I highly recommend that. But I went very fast, and it's a lot. And so again, go on to Bodybuilding Institute, members.bodybuildinginstitute.com, and come and join us. We have these conversations. We work through these things together. We use real life examples and situations, and we do peer reviews. So if you're a coach or practitioner, any sort of provider, and you've got clients or patients that are going through crises, we do peer reviews and work through these things together, and it's really amazing. And so I know I'm biased, but it's very, very helpful, and want to share that with the world. I want everybody to benefit from it as much as possible, as well as contribute. So you got something you can contribute. That's why we want you there.
Absolutely, Sarah. I couldn't add anything more to that. I just really appreciate everything this has been a wonderful show. I can't believe how much information you put into this. And the only thing I would say is, like, just come to bodybuilding, just come out, meet a few people in the community. We're doing this on a weekly basis, every Friday, high noon, with Sarah and Jen. The newsletter is free. We'll link you. It's in the description below. Leave a comment if you have any questions. We will get back to you about anything. It's a lot what we've talked about today. So let it marinate, and then we'd love to hear your questions.
Digest it. I was telling Jen before we hopped on, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to keep it short. I don't know how I'm going to stay within an hour on this. But look, we did it almost exactly an hour. I got to pat myself on the back for that, because if you've ever met me, or if you've ever taken any of my courses and done the live Q&As with me, I will go on and on and on. I will thoroughly flesh out anything. If you ask a question, just be ready. So I'm very proud of myself for keeping this within the hour.
Thanks, Laura.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. What is next week? Is the
We're
next week we're going to have 2 new videos. So be ready for those. We talked about the 4 bodies, which that newsletter already went out. Next
yeah,
week is going to be, we're going to talk about dreams versus goals. So like having goals versus having a dream. That's really important. Again, it's sort of on the heels of understanding what your myth is. All of this ties in together. So stay tuned for that. And if you have any questions, comments, leave them below and we will answer your questions. Talk to you guys soon.